Okay, it's past the statute, so I can tell the story now. Okay? And it saved me several $1,000s in penalties. You don't go to the court without an attorney. You don't go to the IRS without a CPA. For all businesses, the IRS cannot penalize you for a simple mistake.
Okay.
You say, well, if you screw up, they're going to penalize you. They can't. Statute says only for gross negligence. Who defines gross negligence? Well, the IRS defines gross negligence is everything. Okay? There's never a traffic jam on the extra mile.
Ladies and gentlemen, one thing is true, regardless of where you're at in life, no one likes paying taxes. But when you find somebody who can be that true advisor and truly help you get the most back, they are worth their weight in gold. Now, Charles Reed, he's a CPA, he's a US Tax Practitioner, a member of the IRS Advisory Council, and he's also the founder of GetPayroll. Now, Charles, tell the audience what I got wrong and why they should listen today.
Well, you did misstate one thing. I'm a US Tax Court Practitioner.
Sorry about that, yeah.
That's all right, which allows me to represent my clients in United States Tax Court without being an attorney. Mm-hmm. I actually have a bar card, and I'm a member of the Tax Court Bar, even though I'm not a licensed attorney, which means I do it for a fraction of the price and probably a little better, because attorneys are all over the place, and I'm a tax specialist. Good. So it allows me to get my clients a whole nother bite at the apple that most CPAs can't get for them.
Oh yeah. And again, I mean, you brought up a good point there, and that is number one. If I work with a lawyer who may not have anything to do with taxes or train in that, but they're a lawyer, I'm going to charge, they're going to charge $500 an hour, and they're not very good at it. So, before I pitch your book, Charles, I want to say upfront, thank you so much for your service. As a vet myself, I do want to say thank you for the things that you have done to protect and to care for our nation. So thank you, sir. And I do want to jump into the payroll book, because you wrote this book, and I know changes have been crazy within the legislative landscape, the tax foundations and everything. What's the 1, 2, 3 things that I will get out of this book that I really need to know about? Love to hear your take on it.
Well, the book is the Payroll Book, a guide for small businesses and startups. Mm-hmm. It's 30 years of experience distilled down to 95,000 words. Mm-hmm. But there's a couple of major things to look at. It's designed for small businesses and startups. So the first thing we touch on is the type of entity you want to be and how different entities affect payroll and employment taxes and what's good and bad and indifferent. Then the next big thing is classification. 70% of employers in this country misclassify employees according to the Labor Department, either as independent contractors versus employees, or as exempt from overtime or not exempt from overtime. Right. And those can be very expensive mistakes. A lot of startups really make the mistake of misclassification because they go, I'll just pay them cash. I'll just pay them under the table, whatever. Or I'll just hire them as contractors, 1099ers. Yep. That's not your choice. There's a whole body of law, which changes periodically, about how that works. And you can't just say, well, I'm going to hire you as a 1099, and the guy says, okay, fine. That's not necessarily legal. Right. So that's the next big thing. And then after that, of course, we get into tax penalties. Mm-hmm. In fiscal 19, the IRS issued $13 billion in employment tax penalties. Mm. Over half of them got abated by people like me who know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. So in the book, I go through how to avoid penalties and how to abate them. So those 3 things make the book worth it by itself. Oh, yeah. Then there's a lot of other things that are payroll related, PEOs, record keeping, what you have to keep and not keep to stay legal, handbooks, security, technology. Actually, section 2 is how to do a payroll. Okay. How to calculate it, what's pre-tax, what's post-tax, so on and so forth. So, like I said, 30 years of experience distilled down to 95,000 words.
That's pretty impressive. Yeah, and I imagine it's very insightful. I mean, the 95,000 words seems like a lot, but when you break it down into these very important topics, I mean, you'll probably blitz right through it and then have to read it again because it could be so complex. But
Yeah, and one other thing, it is a great cure for insomnia.
It's a wonderful picture of the book. Yeah. I'm glad you brought
Put it on
that.
your bedside. If you can't sleep, just open it up and you'll go to sleep.
One thing you brought up, and I love that you brought up, and that's the misclassifications. You said 75% of businesses do that. I think with the market, and I mean, everybody knows about the gig economy, the side hustles and all that kind of stuff. And I think a lot of times people don't quite realize that when they're getting into business, that yes, you can't just pay everybody the same, and you can't pay everybody the way you want to necessarily according to law. So with the gig economy kind of booming as it is right now, and will continue to grow in the next coming years, I mean, how are you helping your clients really bridge that gap, not just with knowledge, but ensure that they're covered with liability and paying their people right?
Well, and this is something we talk about with our new clients, particularly new businesses. And we can advise them because a lot of them will have some 1099ers and some employees. And it's also how you structure contracts, how you write up employee manuals or handbooks and this kind of thing can make all the difference. There's 20 common law rules that are the basis for governing independent contractor versus employee. So if you structure the agreement with the contractor with those in mind, you may be able to structure your agreement to fit the law the way you want it to. But if you just go willy-nilly, it's not going to work.
Right.
So we can advise our clients on those things and keep them from getting into trouble, and then, if necessary, defend them to the appropriate regulatory agencies. And we've done this. We've had law changed here in Texas because we went into what's called a Rule 13 hearing with the Texas Workforce Commission and proved to the commissioners that this client had contractors. Even though the auditor said, no, they're employees and you owe all this money and penalties and interest, we went in and proved to the commission that no, their examiner was wrong and they needed to change what their view of my client's employees, that they were contractors, and we won.
Wow. And you can't do that unless you have the proper, record keeping in place.
The record keeping, the knowledge, the argumentative skills, the case law. This is something I've been involved in payroll for many, many years. I've been doing it for other people for the last 30 plus years. So I read a lot. I take the trade journals. I've studied the law. I've studied law for my tax court practitioner. So all these things put me in a relatively unique position of being able to accomplish things that a lot of other people don't, because they just don't have the body of experience that I have. It's just, it's not like I'm special. It's just like I've made all the mistakes and lived through them and learned from them.
Well, we appreciate you making those mistakes so we can learn from them. I think, one of the mistakes that I think people may run into as well. Again, the book is written for small businesses and startups. Yep. And so you mentioned as far as the entities themselves. Now, everybody knows the LLC as solopreneur. I mean, all those different things. And now, again, I know that you can't give an answer for everybody. Do you see certain entities that work better for certain businesses? I'm a consulting. I run a barber shop. I mean, are there certain entities that work better for different industries?
Sure. Well, it's not so much industries. It's for tax purposes. The most favored entity for federal tax purposes is an S corporation. Okay. And if you can be an S corporation, that's what we recommend 99% of the time. Even if you decide you want to set up as an LLC, and there's advantages and disadvantages, but it's a choice. But then you can agree to file your LLC as an S corp for federal tax purposes, and that gives you advantages and the ability to maneuver in ways that a C corporation, a partnership, or a sole proprietorship, or an LLC that's disregarded as a sole proprietorship doesn't give you. in the way of manipulating things. So
Okay.
it gives you more freedom and more capability to keep your taxes at a minimum, which, nobody is required to pay $1 more than they're required to pay. And I don't think you should. You should pay every dollar you owe.
Yep.
Don't get me wrong. I mean, if we don't have taxes, well, we don't have congressmen. We don't have roads, and we don't have other things. Okay,
Yeah.
congressmen. Well, we can. Never mind. Anyway, so taxes are necessary for a modern society, but you shouldn't pay any more than you have to.
Right. Absolutely, 100%. Yeah. So when I look at those entities, as I'm starting to grow, I've picked mine. Now I need to do that. Whatever the entity may look like for the individual business. I guess when it comes to payroll, if I'm 3, 4, 5 people and I'm starting to grow, when do you feel like, when should I look at really outsourcing payroll? I mean, if I'm doing it myself, I'm using whatever technologies out there. I don't want to name drop some of the most popular ones, but if I'm doing it myself, when should I look at outsourcing?
Well, imagine what happens when you get your first certified letter from the Internal Revenue Service saying you have penalties and interest, and you have 30 days before they drop a lien on your bank accounts.
It's probably too late then, right?
Yeah, you should have probably have outsourced it before that happened. I recommend, being in the business, that the moment you start paying payroll, you outsource it. Okay. An outsourced company has all the technology, has the software, has the equipment, is very familiar with the laws, can advise you and keep you from making mistakes because you don't know what you don't know. And the payroll law is complex, complicated, and changes. And if you don't know what you don't know, the analogy I use is, when I grew up, Pele was the world's best soccer player, maybe of all times. Wonderful athlete, still alive. But if you took Pele and put him in a New York Yankees uniform and stuck him at second base, he'd be lost.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're a consultant or a chef or a manufacturer or whatever. And all of a sudden you're said, okay, you know your business, you do it well. You're successful. Now go deal with the IRS. You're Pele at second base. You don't have any idea what you're doing. And that's what's going to happen. You're going to make a mistake, or the IRS is going to make a mistake. The IRS makes millions of mistakes every year. And if you don't know how to deal with that, you lose.
Right.
So the pittance it is to outsource payroll, and the time it saves you, when all you have to do is go to the computer and say, pay Sally 40 hours and forget about it. Okay, everything is done for you. All the deposits are made. Sally's direct deposit shows up. All the filings are made for the state. All the filings are made for the Fed, maybe local filings. All those are made on time. The end of the year comes. Her W-2 shows up electronically. All these things happen. And you didn't do anything. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to be up to speed on it. You don't have to do about it. I promise you, if you do payroll yourself, there'll be the day you come and you'll open that drawer and go, oh shit, I didn't make that deposit. Well, now it's too late. You've got a penalty. Okay.
Right.
Or I've got these forms. I need to send them in. Okay. I'll get to them. And a week later, you turn over that pile and there's that form you forgot to send off. You got a penalty. I guarantee you it's going to happen. When you use an outsourced service like us, that's our responsibility.
Right.
I'm not going to say we don't ever make a mistake, but if we do, we pay for it. You don't.
Yeah, and I think, as business owners, I think, again, I've worked with, I have quite a few friends, and I work with, in that kind of startup space, and, I've seen a lot of people I think they just get used to running busy. Like, I got to do payroll on Tuesday, I got to do this, I got to do, this report, I got to talk to my investors, whatever it may be, and I feel like it just becomes routine I just take care of it, or I got a guy, we do it in-house, wherever that may be, and I feel like sometimes, because it's theirs, they don't want to give it up. But then again, they'll complain about, I don't want to cut the grass. I'll just hire somebody to do it. It's like, I feel like sometimes they're so busy working in the business rather than on the business that they
On the
don't
business.
do it.
Absolutely. Michael Gerber's E-Myth Revisited is one of my favorite books. I buy it by the dozen and give it out to clients.
Good.
And it teaches you how to work on your business. But if you look at the time you spend doing payroll, and if you take that time and put it onto your business, or just think about your business, how much more valuable would that time be instead of going off in here and paying somebody this small pittance, these few dollars to take care of that, and you never have to think about it, and you'll never find that check or that form that you forgot to file or deposit.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of things worth paying for, like you and I were talking about before.
No. Look, like you said, I don't make my own clothes. I don't build my own car. I don't mow my own lawn anymore. To me, that's work. I'd rather come in and do a tax return and make many times as more money than it costs me to have somebody else mow the lawn in the same period of time.
Absolutely.
So it only makes sense for me to outsource things that aren't my core business. And we do that here. But we do payroll. I'm the one that talks to the IRS. I'm the one that keeps up to speed on that. That's my core business. I get 5 newsletters a week from the Internal Revenue Service. I get multiple trade journals. I read legal cases. I read what goes on in the tax court on a weekly basis. I keep up with this stuff. So when you say, hey, Charles, what about this? And I can go, hey, Dustin, well, let me explain this, and this. In this recent case, this happened, and there was this ruling not too long ago, and under Treasury Reg, and IRS regulation XYZ, you can't do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we always want to find
a great idea, but no, it'll get you into trouble. So don't do it.
I don't know, maybe they didn't say this in the Marine Corps, but in the Army, anyways, they would say, hey, great initiative, poor execution. So. Yeah. But yeah, and again, I think
we're a little more in the Marine Corps. They were a little blooder.
Yeah, it's a softer, gentler nowadays. But I think going back to kind of that working on the business, I feel like because you're primarily work with the HR. I mean, of course, you're going to work with the CFOs and the CEOs and that kind of thing. But when it comes back to actually taking care of that administrative work, I mean, frankly, the HR department, and they've reshifted it. They've been a whole evolution over the past couple of years, and hopefully for good reasons, and thankfully so. I think for the most part, yes. When it talks about just keeping time and how difficult that can be when I've got 3 different vendors that I'm using, how do you really, through your payroll system, how do you really drive that really soft dollar cost savings? I'm not talking about it costs this much a month, but that soft dollar cost savings. How can you directly affect businesses as a whole?
Well, besides saving them time and teaching them ways to be more effective, for instance, you're talking timekeeping. On average, not having a time clock costs you 10% of payroll. So we have available to our clients time clocks, timekeeping systems, computerized systems, all that integrate fully. These kinds of things are available. We integrate with most of the point of sale systems that exist in the country. So all of these things allow you to operate more efficiently and more effectively, which reduces your time, your aggravation. You have experts that you can refer your employees to if they say, why can't I do this? Or what happens here? You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to think about it. You've got an outside expert that you can handle those things for you. Also the security. You don't have paychecks laying around. You don't have reports laying around. It's all computerized. And if your computer dies, we'll send you a whole new backup set of all your reports. You don't even have to think about it. Okay? So all these things make you, as the business person, more efficient in processing the payroll and the payroll-related things. Handbooks. We'll teach you how to write up a handbook and show you. We have services that work with you. So and a handbook in this day and age is really a requirement,
right?
Because it's your contract with your employees. So we'll teach you these things and work with you as an entrepreneur, a small business startup. So you don't have to learn all of these things. All you have to do is, we send out weekly emails to update clients and teach them about things and ways to make their life easier. So it's all a process. We're a service to our clients, and we want to, in our arena, make their life as simple as possible.
Good. Well, I think that goes a long way too. I mean, as far as making their life simple, because I think, again, in that HR space, I mean, it's so overtaxed with as far as the amount of administrative tasks that they have to do. So allowing them to actually be more strategic, I mean, that's got to work wonders. And I think one of those key pieces you brought up earlier, and that was kind of the compliance piece. Again, you're reading the articles, you're reading into the core states. I mean, what are some things you're seeing now, especially around compliance, that is really kind of going bonkers? Like, what should business owners today really focus on? What do they need to know?
Well, the classification is a big thing, and they're pushing that, and that's going to be more and more because there's such a huge problem. Wage theft. You've got to be careful if you're employing minimum wage or close to minimum wage people, that you don't do things that drive them below what the federal government says is minimum wage based on deductions or whatever else. That'll get you into severe problems and possibly criminal findings. And you want to avoid those at all costs. When you close a business, you have to be extraordinarily careful that you got everything taken care of, that you don't have things hanging out, because you may not realize this, but even in a corporation, for that portion of taxes that you withheld from your employees, you're personally responsible as the responsible party, and you can't get out of it with bankruptcy or anything else. It will follow you literally to your grave if you're not careful. So that's something you need to be aware of, that if you can't pay payroll, if you can't pay the payroll taxes, don't pay the payroll. Right. That's an old saw in my business. Just, you got to do something else. Working with the IRS. Tell clients never to talk to the IRS.
They got you.
They'll get upset. They'll say things they shouldn't say. And I've done this for years. Well, here a few months ago, the IRS screwed up on my taxes. So, being the professional, I called up the revenue officer, and he started saying really stupid things. And my temper rose, and the level of my voice rose. And I find myself yelling at this ignorant SOB because he was wrong, and I knew it, and I could prove it to him, and he wouldn't listen to me. And so I'm yelling at him. In the back of my mind, I'm going, Charles, don't do that. Don't do that. But I'm yelling at the guy over the phone, and then he proceeds to get nasty and do more stupid things to me. Well, it took me about 3 weeks because of COVID to get a hold of his supervisor, who said, no, none of that should happen. And it all went away. Okay. Because I'd calmed down by the time I talked to the supervisor. So don't talk to the IRS because it affects your pocketbook. Believe me, I know when it affects mine, I get upset.
100%.
So all these things, just you don't go to the court without an attorney. You don't go to the IRS without a CPA.
Gotcha.
It's just a mistake.
So I mean, so let's say I'm a business owner, and fortunately I have paid my taxes. I'm doing everything right. Let's say I do get some type of notice. I mean, whatever that may look like, doesn't matter, right? So of course I'm going to reach out to you. I'm going to reach out to my trusted advisors to kind of help me walk through this. How are you in a position now that you could really help fight and mitigate that risk and that liability for business owners?
First of all, to mitigate it, I've already talked to you about ways to avoid penalties. But when you get one in, we take a 2848. That's a Form 2848 limited power of attorney, which allows us to deal with the IRS for our clients. So we've probably already gotten our copy of the letter that you got. And in many cases, we're calling you and telling you we've already solved the problem. Or we're telling you what the IRS has screwed up and what we are going to do. Dealing with the IRS for a penalty, it's a whole series of no's followed by a single yes.
Gotcha.
When you get a letter, and I go through it in the book, and you send the first response, they will always say no. When you say, you're wrong, this is really what happened, please abate the penalty, their response is no. And they send you a pamphlet on what your next level of appeals is, which is the appeals coordinator. Well, about 95% of the time you go to the appeals coordinator, they say no. Well, then you go to the appeals officer. And then you go, maybe you have to file a 12-153 for a collection due process hearing. Or, it goes on. And if necessary, for $60, you file a tax court petition and get a whole nother bite at the apple with a whole different division staffed with really sharp people. Right. That many cases look at that and go, oh, no, that's a mistake, never mind. And it goes away. 95% of all US court tax cases are settled before court. Gotcha. So you're probably going to get, at worst, a settlement. Okay. At best, it's going to go away. You won't know how to do this. That's what we do for you. And we do it all the time because the IRS makes millions of mistakes every year. Yeah. And we get our share. I had one day, 2 proposed refunds came through for our clients for their federal unemployment taxes, both for $7,065, 2 different clients, same day, same exact amount, refunds. Between the 2 of them, they hadn't paid more than $400 in federal unemployment taxes, but they were being offered $15,000 in refunds. Yeah. Obvious mistake. Yeah. Okay. That's the fun one because they want to give you money. The other one is when they come in and say, you owe $15,000 and you really paid your $400 on time. Right. But something has gotten screwed up somewhere, and we're experts at tracking that down. I talk about in the book that one of the things you have to do is you have to answer every communication you get. Okay. If you get a letter saying you owe this penalty and you send them a letter, and 2 weeks later you get the same letter saying you owe this money, you have to send your response again. Gotcha. You never want to ignore a single inquiry from the IRS or from the state, because there's some of them, if you don't answer within a certain period of time, you lose appeal rights. Okay. And some of them at this point comes this day at end of business that day, it's over. You've lost, whether you owe the taxes or not. Mm-hmm. If you haven't responded by that point in time, you forfeited. Yeah. The law is you've now basically agreed to it. Okay. And you can't unagree to it. So you've got to be very careful about these things because they can trap you into a absolutely no-win situation. Had a client who had mailed 2 tax returns at the same time. Big mistake. Mm-hmm. And years later, they said, you never filed this tax return. And we went through the whole thing, but the statute for filing had passed and he owed the money. Whether or not he really owed it, he had to pay it. And it was just, he got entrapped into the law, and it happens. Mm-hmm. So you have to be very careful about those things. And this again goes back to, you don't know what you don't know. These are things we've worked at and learned and studied and gotten educated on and made mistakes on and paid for them and lived through them. And you're never going to know it until it's too late. So, I don't run my clients' businesses. They run them. They're the experts. Mm-hmm. I go to them, when I need my garage door fixed, I call my garage door client. Yep. That installs and fixes garage doors. I don't try and do it myself. Okay. And when he has an IRS problem, he doesn't try and fix it. He calls me. So it works. When you brought up that story about, they want to give you back more money than you thought you should get. When I finished basic training, I got an extra $400 at the end of it. And I was like, well, I didn't earn this, so I'm trying to figure this out. It took me a year. I had a circle and I drew up on a butcher blockboard, 8 people that I did a whole circle twice. I was like, fine, I'm in the Army. You'll find me if you guys want the money back. Of course, they charged me, like $100 worth of interest, 5 years later. But, it was just exactly. Because literally I had no idea how to figure this thing because I was trying to figure it out myself. We get clients that get refund checks they shouldn't have.
Oh, yeah.
And I tell them, if they ask me about it, or if I see it and I see the notice come through, I tell them, don't cash it.
Yep. Yep.
Actually mark void on it, send it to me, and I'll send it back, and we'll get it taken care of. Because if you cash that, and going back to the point where you deposited, you now owe penalties and interest on that money that they sent you back, and they'll charge you that penalty and interest if you cash that check. If you
100%.
return the check to them, then the money stays in your account as of the date you made it.
Yep.
But if you take the refund, it goes out as of the date it was deposited.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, so what would be some, I mean, especially from like the employer side, I mean, what are some tips that you'd give to, regardless of business, you know, industry, whatever? I mean, what are some tips to really avoid? I mean, to even get in that point where I would get either too high or too low or whatever. What are some tips to avoid that tax penalties?
Well, there's 5 things you need to do. First of all, make sure all your numbers are right.
Okay.
All the additions right, all the multiplications right, all the subtraction is right. That is the biggest source of penalties, is arithmetic mistakes.
Yeah.
I mean, just simple mistakes.
Yep.
You know, check them. If you're doing it by hand, double check them, or use a computer that'll do it automatically. That's the biggest thing. Next biggest thing is making your deposits timely.
Okay.
If that tax deposit's 1 second late, there's a penalty. 1 second. Years ago, when we used to deposit them at the bank rather than electronically, I actually was running late one day, and I called my bank, and they held the teller drawer open for an extra 15 minutes for me to get there and make those deposits in that day's business.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Okay. It's past the statute, so I can tell the story now. Okay. And it saved me several $1,000s in penalties because I was running late that day.
Yeah.
And I bought the teller line a champagne lunch
Good.
as a thank you. The bank let them have the lunch, but made them wait till the close of business to open the champagne. So 1 second late will be a penalty. So make sure your deposit's on time. Make sure your filings are on time. Okay. You've got to, there's 2 things there. You got to know what to file.
Okay.
And you have to file it timely. We get clients come to us, new clients, startups, and so on, constantly. Oh yeah, well, you know, I needed. I said, do you have your Fed number? Well, yeah, I had to get that for the bank. I said, do you have your state unemployment number? I'm sorry, what? Well, do you have your the tax revenue number? Say what? Well, you've got state income tax you have to file. Say what? You've got to know what you need to file, and you've got to know when you need to file it and file it on a timely basis.
Gotcha. Okay.
So if you do all your arithmetic right, calculate the deposits right, and file them on time, know what you need to file in terms of reports, do them properly, and file them on time, you're going to avoid most of the penalties that small businesses get hit with.
Okay.
And 40% of small businesses get hit with an employment tax penalty every year that averages $800.
Wow.
So if you didn't pay one last year or the year before, you're probably due this year.
The law of averages, you're going to hit.
You're going to hit. And that's what we avoid for our clients. They don't get those because we do everything accurately and on time. I'm going to give you one huge tip for all businesses. The IRS cannot penalize you for a simple mistake.
Okay.
Now, you say, well, you know, if you screw up, they're going to penalize you. They can't. Statute says only for gross negligence. Who defines gross negligence? Well, the IRS defines gross negligence is everything. Okay. So if you make a simple mistake, you need to fight it, and you need to appeal it, and you need to appeal it again and again and again. And hopefully you'll get to, at some point, somebody who'll say, yeah, that's just a simple mistake. No big deal. We'll abate it. They can't penalize you for a simple mistake. They will if you let them,
right?
But they can't legally do it. You just have to fight them.
Gotcha. Like you said, you got to get through a litany of no's before you get to that yes. Yep.
Absolutely. It's a process, and we know it well.
Yeah. So I do want to get, I guess, a little bit personal now, and that is, you're in Texas, beautiful state. Been there many times, love it. So you start the business. How do you fight against your competitors? I mean, there's some big monkeys out there in the payroll space. I mean, how do you differentiate yourself, and how do you grow that business in Texas to that 7-figure mark, fighting the behemoths out there in the payroll industry?
First of all, years ago, we went on the net, and we're nationwide.
Mm-hmm.
We're one of the smaller national firms. Okay. We operate in, I think, 47 states currently. Okay. We've operated in all 50 of them over time. Mm-hmm. So we're on the net. We're on the internet. We've been there. We had a green payroll. We were the first green payroll. So we have things that are innovative. Getting ready to offer crypto payroll. Wow. So that's another new thing. There's a lot of things. So we're agile. Mm-hmm. We can change on a dime. If I decide we're going to market something, we can start this afternoon, and it's already afternoon. So our big competitors, they're huge bureaucracies. Mm-hmm. Okay. They can't change. If something happens, it'll take them weeks, months, or years to adapt to it.
For planning committees to get done. Yeah.
Yeah. Second of all, I'm a CPA. My phone number is 972-353-0000. Okay. You call, and if my staff can't handle it, you ask for Charles, and I'll talk to you.
Awesome.
I called ADP one day, and I asked for Mr. Rodriguez, who's the president of ADP. Well, no, I asked for the president, and the girl at the switchboard said, "The president of what?" And I said, "The president of ADP." And she says, "Oh, he doesn't have a phone." And I'm laughing. I said, "Okay, the president of a multi-billion-dollar company does not have a phone on his desk." Well, not one we can connect to. So if you've got a problem at a major corporation like ADP, and you need to talk to Mr. Rodriguez, who's the president, you can't. Okay? If they've screwed up and you need somebody in management to fix it, good luck. Okay? If you've got a problem with us and my staff doesn't handle it, my operations manager can't handle it, you say, "I want to talk to Charles." He'll connect you to my office. And if I'm not there, I will call you back. So that's the kind of thing, the level of service we give to our clients. Plus the fact I'm a CPA. We take a 2848. Our major competitors won't take a 2848 because that's professional responsibility, and they're unwilling to have professionals take professional responsibility for what goes on. ADP, Paychex, Ceridian, they have CPAs, but you can't talk to them. They're handling their accounting up on the 5th floor, and they don't have phones that you can ring and say, "Hey, I got a CPA question on payroll. Who do I talk to?" They'll tell you to talk to your own CPA, who'll charge you. And if your own CPA really understood payroll, he'd be doing your payroll already. So you're going to pay him to figure out what's going on instead of them having professionals on staff to take care of you. That's where we differ. We have professionals. We're compliance experts. You know, we tout our compliance because we're really, really good at it. Now, you may never need that. Okay. You may never have the IRS send you a notice saying you screwed up and you owe us all this money, plus penalties and interest. That may never happen to you.
Hopefully not.
Your house may never burn down, but you have fire insurance. You may never be in an auto wreck, but you have auto insurance. Well, you may never need us for your payroll. But if you do, it's too late.
You know, and the fact that you brought up, I mean, the agileness, and I love that, because I mean, when you're talking about calling in the ADP, I was thinking, like, can I speak to the president? Well, what division, what department, you know, president do you want to talk to? I got 36 of them, right? You know, so the fact that you could switch, you know, like I said, if I want to do something today and it's already afternoon, I could do it by, give me an hour, I'll have some marketing material out. And you brought up cryptocurrency, that you're going to include that into the payroll kind of process.
We're talking about doing that right now.
Wow. Because I feel like a lot of things are moving towards that, and especially with, I don't want to put my tinfoil hat now, but we start talking about inflation. A lot of people are looking into cryptocurrency as a viable source of payments, and really, frankly, as income. And this, not just because there's a lot of big name people doing it, but because people find more solace in it. How does that process work? I understand you could do the agile part, but how are you working with businesses to roll this out here in the near future if you haven't already?
We're actually designing the process right now.
That's awesome.
And we're finding the little things that are iffy and that we're working at here. Probably in 2 weeks, we'll be rolling it out.
Wow.
It's a little more complex to be able to switch to that this afternoon, but once we have it all done, we'll turn on the marketing for it immediately.
Wow. And I think that's huge. I think that's phenomenal. Because again, I think the whole market's kind of shifting like, well, what about this? Maybe it's not such a crazy thing to offer.
And Dustin, you're the first person I've talked to about it outside of the crypto people we're working with.
That's awesome.
So you have an exclusive.
That's good. Yeah. Well, I got some people I might want to hook you up with, because I know a couple of people on the crypto side that are looking to do just that. That's phenomenal. And I think that's great. Again, I think that speaks to how and why you have not just been able to grow, but how you've done it. Again, I could pick up the phone, and maybe for listeners, maybe they want to just give it a try, 972-353-0000, and then ask for Charles, but this has been phenomenal. I'm really excited that the things that you're doing is, frankly, I think what's going to happen is you're going to do it. You're going to set the trend, and then the big people will try to follow afterwards. But, you get that first name in there. That's great. Yeah. That's awesome. Well, hey, look, Charles, this has been phenomenal. This really has been a lot of fun, just because, again, I know that as a business owner, as I'm working with small business owners, a lot of times they are perplexed by just how complex the IRS system is and filing. So if they want to reach out to you and get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that? You gave them your phone number. How should people reach out to you, Charles?
We're GetPayroll on the web, getpayroll.com. They have my phone number. My email is cjr@getpayroll.
Okay.
.com. So there's 3 ways to get a hold of me. Now, I would like to do one thing for your listeners. If they'd like a copy of the book, if they'll go to the payrollbook.com, specific site for the book, enter the discount code podcast, we will ship your listener a free book. No shipping, no handling, just a free book.
That's awesome. All right. So that was thepayrollbook.com. The discount code is going to be podcast, and they get a free book. No, if you order 2 now, it's just pay shipping and handling.
No bullshit.
Oh.
Hey, I'm an old Marine. We're really straightforward. Tell them all, let God sort it out, type thing. We don't. No, it's a free book. Period.
Yeah. That's awesome. Wait, just 2 last questions, Charles, because again, I love that free book. If there's one thing that I did not ask you, I didn't do a good job of hosting, or I didn't ask you that one question that our people really need to take away, what's that one thing?
Oh, Lord. Well,
you can do 2 or 3 too. I'll give you some extras.
I tell people that for us and for them in their business, there's never a traffic jam on the extra mile.
Yep.
So we'll go the extra mile for our clients. We go the extra mile for our employees. We believe in service beyond the ordinary, which, in the payroll business, it's required. I had a client in the roofing business, and he was late getting me the payroll, and we literally drove it over to him in Fort Worth. He's standing in the parking lot with 30 roofers with roofing knives on their belt, waiting for their paychecks. Everybody was happy to see me. Okay.
Yeah.
We go the extra mile because we just believe that's the way you should be in business.
Yeah.
That's the way I was raised. I was raised in a family business. You go that extra mile, period. You don't care about the cost. You take care of your clients. And that's really steeped into how we deal with business and handle our clients.
I love that. Yeah, I really do love that. There's no traffic jam on the extra mile. And I think that's so true, not just in business, in life, whatever that may be. So Charles, thank you so much for really walking through our listeners today about how payroll, but the compliance piece, how all the IRS, I mean, all these things, it definitely ain't easy, Charles, but it's worth it. Thank you so much, sir, for your time, your knowledge, and the wonderful offer there for that free book. Please go out there and get it. Thank you so much, Charles, for your time today.
Pleasure, Dustin.